Welcome back. Now, from tomorrow, people in England are being advised to work from home again amid rising COVID cases and the emergence of a new variant. Well, with me now is workplace wellbeing expert Cara de Lange. Thank you for your time on Sky News this morning. I just want to get your reaction when you first heard Boris Johnson advising, obviously, to work from home again, if we can.
Good morning, Vanessa. Yes, I think for a lot of people, this will be a little bit of a shock, because what we've learned is that nobody really wants to work in the office full time. A lot of hybrid working is very much appreciated. But for some people, working from home all the time will be a little bit of the shock. And initially, when people first started working from home, there was a concern about productivity. What we've seen is that actually people can be productive working from home. Some businesses have seen productivity even increase. But what we really need to look out for is our sustainable productivity. So making sure that we're sustainably productive. And the most important factor that's coming up here is our well-being. So people really need to look after our well-being. And what's very interesting is that University of California, Irvine, and some recent research have just found that lockdowns and pandemic can actually affect and give us some memory loss, which is really interesting. And this underlying and low-level anxiety that we felt about the pandemic has also increased fatigue. So when you are working from home, this is very important to take into account.
And the hybrid working that you mentioned, that's something that a lot of people have now taken on board, haven't they? So they're probably thinking, well, what should we do? Should we stick to the hybrid working, or should we just completely scrap it altogether? What's your advice?
I think it's different for each individual, and it's different for each business. So you've got to try to work out what's best for you and work out what you've learned. So what has worked really well and what doesn't work well working from home or in a hybrid model. And one thing that people do need to do when they are working from home is making sure to combat that screen fatigue, is making sure we have some variation. So working from home, when we are inside, our hippocampus, actually our shell shaped side of the brain, is not activated in the same way as it would be when we go out of to the office. And that happens because when we go outside, our brain goes into survival mode. And the interesting part of that is we can actually correct that by making sure that we activate our hippocampus, going outside when we do go on our walks, take a slightly different route, making sure we have variation throughout the day. So making sure that we are actually standing up after a couple of Zoom or team calls, making sure we have some walking calls and things like that. So variation is really key. And making sure that we stay flexible on this situation of working from home and hybrid working, and learning as we go along. That's one of the most important things that people can do. And we don't want to burn out the workforce, right? So we want to make sure that we stay flexible, that people keep talking about how they're feeling, and that we make sure that we're also measuring and assessing how we're feeling as well.
But also trying to set boundaries as well between work and, leisure life. That can also be quite difficult, can't it? If you're having to work from home constantly, you don't get that separation.
Absolutely. Boundary setting is so incredibly important. And, this can be done really, really small ways, right? So had a client that we worked with, and they sort of said, oh, working from home, they dreaded every Monday because they were, working from the same space, the same room, quite a small room, and there was a mindset there that was that we needed to look at changing. So the mindset is very important when you want to set boundaries. So when she started checking her emails in the morning and had that sort of feeling of dread, what we helped is change the mindset and change the internal way that she was approaching things. So mentally preparing for the day and making sure that she was taking time away from her screen and really setting those breaks in her day, even if it was 60 seconds. People can do that, even a 60 seconds micro wellness exercise. So setting the boundaries and making sure that you have a proper time when you do finish your work is so important.
Cara de Lange, great speaking to you this morning. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much, Vanessa.
Now, as COVID restrictions return, there's concern that children and young people may shun sport and stay at home instead. Sport England has found that almost 100,000 children were less active in the last academic year than the previous one, and it believes that lockdown